Ed, do you want to lead or you want me to lead, buddy?
You have at it. I'm in a place that's a little busier, so
All right. And if we can, I want to go back and forth as much as we can too. So I might ask you some questions. We're talking about listing marketing today. Good morning, everybody. It's Mike Novak from the Novak real estate team, just north of Seattle in Everett, Washington. And we got Ed Stroud too. Ed, Jim Black, myself, and Rachel, we run the BUILD Mastermind each week. It's at 10 o'clock Pacific time, and we're always doing a deep dive into one or two topics. Today is all about listing marketing. I wanted to start by talking about mastering the basics of marketing. Like to me, and I want your opinion on this, but to me, marketing is kind of the combination of presentation, positioning, and exposure. Is that something you would agree with?
100%, 100%. Our job is to be able to show the property in the best light, show our company in the best light, and do a lot of and do that consistently. I think marketing automatically comes with the word consistency.
Yeah. And I think that when you look at the real estate industry, Ed, it seems like in particular, maybe some old school agents consider marketing very different than what other industries consider marketing. Would you agree with that?
Most definitely. Most definitely.
Yeah. And so, we're going to talk about that today. Marketing has changed significantly over the last 15 years and even over the last 5 years. And so I want to unpack some of that with you guys today. But there's a couple of things that I just kind of want to start with. When it comes to the presentation of the home, staging and home optimization is super, super important. And that's a step that a lot of agents skip because they're not really planning the listing far enough in advance. And I think that that's kind of like the foundation to everything. Like we're going to build a lot of marketing assets based off of the photography and the video that we get of this house. If that doesn't look good, it's not going to draw people in. And one of the most important ingredients to that looking good is to declutter, depersonalize, and optimize the spaces. So I always tell my sellers that the way that you show and market a home is very different than the way that you might live in a home. You might pull out like tons of the furniture that makes the house super cozy and practical to live in, but that makes it feel super, super crowded and like tiny rooms if you leave it in when you're listing your property. So explaining that to people is very, very important. Then having a process for it. So our process on our team, we do what's called a home editing walkthrough, and our listing coordinator will go to the home after we've signed the listing agreement. It's kind of like the next step after we sign them. And they will go room by room and they will make all these recommendations to people like move this desk there, get rid of these pictures there, get rid of that rug, paint this wall, like room by room. And we give them a checklist within 48 hours of that meeting. And that gives them kind of a guiding document on what our recommendations are that they do before they actually list the house. If you don't do this, you're going to end up with sellers that end up with all these things in the back of their mind. Like, I have so much to do, but I haven't taken the time to organize these thoughts into actions. And so I don't really know where to start. And that makes people kind of bogged down. When people feel overwhelmed, they tend to do nothing. And that's like a perfect example of this. They're like, I got so much to do. I don't know where to start. So instead, I'm just going to do none of it. Like, that's just the way that people work for some reason. And so giving them just clarity on what should be done room by room takes a lot of that stress off. And it gives us something to measure and check in on weekly. After that list is created, as the agent, I'll usually reach out to them, make sure they don't have any questions about it. And then we'll just start checking in with them weekly after that, either myself or the listing coordinator, see how is the progress coming. Do you have any questions about what needs to be done? There also may be repairs that are considered at this point as well. A lot of people will do the wrong things when it comes to repairing a house, believe it or not. Like they will spend money in the dumbest places that's not going to give them a positive return on investment. So a big part of what you're going to do is talk people out of spending money on things that won't actually give them a positive result. So I mean, Ed, what are some of the weird ones that you've seen? Like I've seen just weird shit, like totally custom stuff that one person would appreciate, but that other people just see zero value.
It's their little OCDs about their house and the things that bug them. It has nothing to do with the buyer, but it's the little OCDs that bug them. And I don't know. There's a million little things that I've seen, but ultimately, we get them away from that. Clean is a big deal.
Yep.
Fresh, make things look big and open, wide open spaces. We don't do as much staging as you guys do on the West Coast or throughout some of the bigger cities. In the smaller towns, there's not as much staging that goes on.
Yep.
But ultimately it's prepping the house for the best light. That's for sure.
Yep, absolutely. The most common repairs I see are enhancements to paint, floor coverings, sometimes bathroom updates, things like that, and often landscaping as well. You know, like just topical type stuff that's going to make it look fresh, like I said, and kind of pop when it hits the market. We maintain a vendor list. I feel like the vendor part of things is often very chaotic because contractors ebb and flow and how consistent they are. Like a contractor will be really great one time, and then the next time they're too busy, they never even call the person back. And so like we are always evolving our vendor list for our clients. We try to help them as much as possible by getting quotes for them or sending people their way, but that is always kind of a challenge, and something we're just constantly working on. But
I
we do. What's that?
one of the things I was going to talk to you about the vendors is I think if you are the follow-up person with that vendor, number one, it
Yeah,
creates a better relationship for you, and it's doing your people a favor, because if they have to follow up too many times, it makes them mad, and then they don't want to use your people. You being the follow-up, you being the, hey, did you get over there and see that house yet? You haven't got to see there. Hey, you need to get over there. When can I expect you? Because you're the
yeah.
professional, plus you're gonna be the one that continues to uh say their name to the world, and good vendors understand that.
Yeah, you're going to be the one that continues to refer them or not, right? Exactly right. I love that point. That's a good one, Ed. And then cleaning, you know, Ed already kind of mentioned this, but we will often provide a clean before the house goes live, just to make sure it looks really good. I hate listing dirty houses. It's just not to our standard. We want them to look great when they hit the market. And then we will do hard staging or virtual staging on most of our listings. I don't like listing vacant houses empty. I at least want virtual staging on my builder business. They always stage a model, to make sure that people can really get a feel for the space. If you just go into a vacant home, it feels super empty. It doesn't often feel warm, especially like in the wintertime out here when it's freezing ass cold. So we try to stage our homes. Like I had an expired listing last November, and the listing hadn't sold with the last two agents. And the reason it hadn't sold is because it was empty. Like it felt super just cold when you walked in this house. I paid for staging for it. The house sold in 30 days, no problem. Like it was like literally that one easy solve, and it was easy to spot that too. Staging is expensive, so like we build that into our commission structure. Like we don't list for 3%, we list for 3.5%. So we've got a budget to work with on the staging side, and that gives us that money to work with, and it gives a better outcome for the client. You know, the stats on staging show that stage homes sell for 3 to 4% more money. So why not invest that money? You just need to articulate that to your client on why it's in their best interest, and then have an offering that makes make sense for your people. All right, so that's like kind of like the preparation of the home. Anything you want to add to that, Ed? You had some great points there, but is there any other dynamic that I missed?
No, I think you hit it all. Somebody just asked what companies do you use on the virtual side? Is it the box brownies?
Yeah,
What
we
is that
use
what you
box
use?
for that. Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. And one of our photographers, I believe, does virtual staging as well. So yeah, Anna's giving me the thumbs up, so we do that. All right. So the next part I want to talk about is price. And price, like, might not seem like it's part of marketing, but it really is, guys. And you know, Sharon has a great saying that if the marketing is the party, the price is the invitation. And I love that quote, because if you price the home wrong, you're just not going to get any action on it. Yeah, I believe that you cannot outmarket the wrong price. Like if you get everything perfect, but you get that wrong price put up, it's still going to land super flat when it comes on the market. So you really got to do a good job on nailing your price. Ed, what are some of the things you do? Like, especially like, you know, we all have these cookie cutter neighborhoods where it's really easy to nail the price. So like, hey, there's three homes just like your same floor plan, sold in the last 2 months, boom, here's the number, right? But a lot of people struggle, a lot of agents struggle with those, you know, kind of one-off homes that are a little bit more unique, and there's no great comp for them. What do you do to nail your price in an example like that?
You know, number one, I'm pretty confident with the neighborhoods I'm in and where we're at, but there are times I just tell our clients, I think we need to get a third party appraisal. I think we
Yeah,
ought to order that. And whether it's a cost that I do or a cost they do, we always say it's a half back. So if you order a 450 $500 appraisal at closing, I'm gonna give you half your money back. So we're both in it together. But what it
sure.
does is it tells us what that third party's thinking. And it typically, when the bad news comes that it's not as high as the person thinks it is, it comes from the appraiser, not me.
You're not the bad guy.
So
I love
now we can have a different conversation around, okay, well, it wasn't 500, it's 450. Let's try 460. I think we can, you know, make this work. But when it's the one-offs, a lot of times that's what I'll do. But I always look at obviously when looking at comps, I'm looking at what I'm not only what has sold and what's on the market, or what's pending, but what's on the market and what I'm up against. What's the competition, right? And
it.
I'm sure
You're
you guys look at that too.
Yeah, active competition is like highly underestimated. Like everyone looks at the closed comps, but what are you coming on the market that you're going up against? And you know what I will do is I will give them a price range at the listing appointment, but I will tell them that we're actually going to wait to set the price until a day or two before we come on the market because of that exact reason. I have no idea what's going to come on the market over the next 3 months as you get your home ready. And I also don't know where the market's going to be. So we're kind of agreeing this is like the range your price could be at. But we're going to finalize that once we get all the marketing back. Like once we get the photos back, once we see it staged, once we see these updates you've done your house, and what we see what our active competition looks like, and maybe some more closed comparables, then we will pinpoint the price a day or two before closing, and that or before we go live. And that gives them just a little bit of weight off the shoulders. Like, okay, we don't have to make the decision right now. We can think about this a little bit more. We don't have to set price the moment that we sign the listing or the moment that we're starting this process. The other thing that I do, like a lot of you guys are on teams, I leverage my elite agents for their pricing opinion. So if I've got a tough listing, I'll send it to Chuck, Dale, Jen, and Rachel. And I'll say, hey, here's the MLS number. Here's the comps I found. I won't tell them what I'm thinking I should price it at, but I'm going to ask them what they would price it at and get their opinion because they're in the market a lot as well. They're all top 1% agents. And oftentimes their prices range a lot as well. You know, like we had a listing, and it was the Gold Bar listing where I thought the number was 575. And I thought it was 575 because we had a 625 comp, but the 625 comp was way nicer. And I had kind of backed the price down. Dale thought it was 500. Chuck thought it was like 525. And so I was $50,000 higher than the closest person on my team, but I was like confident in the price. And sure enough, we got the price, but it helped give me a really good idea of where other experienced agents thought the market could be at and why they thought it was there. And I also shared that with the client. I said, hey, you know what? This is the number I think we could get for it, but I want to share with you that 4 other really experienced agents, very active agents, think the number is actually this. You know what I mean? And that's really helpful, I think, to share as well. What about bracketing? And I mean, like, are you a 999 guy or a rounded number?
Say that again. I didn't hear you.
Are you a 999 guy? Like, I'm going to list it for $499,999, or is this a $500,000 house?
You know what? I've heard both theories. I don't know if I agree with any of them, to be real honest. So,
What do you do?
you know, I just let our agents do whatever they do, quite honestly. I always did I always probably did the 999 thing. I probably came, you know, it's what all the retailers do. And
Yeah,
so they have a lot of experience in selling stuff. So I'm more the 999 guy. Instead of taking it 500, I'm going to be 499, right?
yeah.
I don't
Mine,
know. I don't know what's right or what's wrong there though.
yeah, I mean, I understand the argument for both sides of it. I typically will be a 999 guy as well, but sometimes I'll go to rounded numbers. Just kind of depends on the situation. Where I try to stay clear of is like weird, awkward numbers that aren't bracketed. Like if you guys look at like the way like a Zillow is set up, it's set up in like 25,000 or $50,000 increments. And so you want to make sure you're taking that into consideration as you're pricing your house. For instance, like if the home is worth $600,000, 605 might not be your best number to list that home at. Like you really want to think long and hard about if that number makes sense. So there's no right or wrong answer. It's just a consideration, you know. So the other thing to talk about with your client is, you know, are we testing the market with this number, or are we pricing it off of what we know to be the number, you know, off of comps? And you don't want to be the testing the market guy. Like that's always a huge red flag to me. When the market is going vertical, I don't mind it quite as much, but when the market is pulling back a little bit or shifting or really dynamic, that doesn't fly with me. And I'm going to talk you out of that all day long because I really feel like you've got one chance to come on the market at the right price. And all the exposure you get is huge at that time. It's hard to walk that back later. Sure, you can do price reductions and you're going to get momentum every time you do that. But it's hard to play catch up. It's better just to nail the price out of the gate if you can. The other thing that I will tell people, Ed, is I'll tell people like, hey, you know what? This is the number I think it's going to be, and where I think we should come on the market at, and this is why. However, the big barometer I'm going to be looking at is how many showings per week we're getting to confirm this is the right price, right? Ultimately, the market decides what the home is worth, not me, not you. It's the market and the buyer. So if we're not getting X amount of showings per week, then I know that we've got the wrong price. Does that make sense? And the way that I'll determine showings per week is just based off of that location and that price point when I look at the statistics in the back end of the MLS. But you need to set an expectation. How many showings per week should I get to know that we got the price correct? Is that something you've done as well, Ed?
It is. I mean, it's all about saying, look, number one, I don't know of a client out there that hasn't said we want to test it to the highest we can test it. Well, by doing that, we might test it wrong and we might not have many showings. We might only have one showing. If that's the case, a lot of times we build in, especially if we think they're overpriced right up front, we build in those downgrades in price in the original contract. So I don't have to have that conversation later and fight with my client, right? So I think it's important. I think it's important to have those downgrades built in. And I think it's important to make sure that you don't go so far as to pricing yourself out of the market, because that really hurts things. And the other thing we ought to talk about, and maybe we can finish this segment, but I don't know if coming soon is on your radar as well, Mike.
I don't have coming soon because it's illegal to do in our market. So I would love for you to talk about that though, and to share what you're doing there. Like I know it's a big thing in other markets. I wish we could do it. That'd be super cool. But we can't do it, unfortunately. So if you
I
want
think
to
it's
share,
I think it's wonderful. We love it. What it does is it gets, it's basically putting in our pre-MLS side, you can put the property out there a week, 2 weeks out and say coming soon, and people can see it, they can see the price, everything else, right? But they can't go look at the property. So the minute you let somebody in before the coming soon date's up, you get in trouble. So
but it's a teaser, like you can see it, but you can't see it, right?
exactly right. So what I tell our clients is, we could have 10 people wanting to look at this property, and then day one, everybody comes, and that creates that vibe of, oh my gosh, it's going to go quick. There's so many people looking at it. And in all reality, it probably would have never done that in a normal market. But because we did that, it definitely adds some excitement to it.
Yeah, I love that, Ed. How long can you keep them in coming soon status?
Well, you can do 30 days, up to 30 days. I know we've done it before.
Got it. All right, awesome. The third thing I want to talk about, we talked about kind of like prepping the home. We talked about price. The third thing is the photography. Like photography becomes the heart of the marketing. And if you've prepped the home well, then this is where it's really going to shine in the photography. I still see agents using their phones for photos. I think that's total garbage. Like you need to be better than that. If you disagree, I totally understand. But I'm just going to tell you, I think that you've got to be better than that. Like if you're expecting to get paid as a professional, you need to act like a professional. You need to employ professionals that do what they do exceptionally well. Hire a freaking real estate photographer or have that capacity in house. Like some big teams, they have that themselves. Like you have your own photographer, right, Ed? Yeah.
Actually, he's on here. Elliot's on here with us. He's our new marketing director. So,
Awesome.
but we actually use
Hi,
our
guys.
Matterport. We use our Matterport 3D scan. And
Yeah.
when we scan our houses, we scan every house, and we actually pull the photography out of that scan, because you can get exactly what angle you want and just pull the photo, and it's worked really well for us. So if you can do in-house, great, but you still need a professional, and Elliot's definitely that.
Right. It always pains me when
Can
I
I
see
chime in?
those. Yeah, definitely. Please do.
I just want to say that coming from a photo video background before taking this job, I was super skeptical when they said that they just pulled photos out of Matterport. I'm like, there's no way that's going to look good, but it does. It's a wonderful camera. We don't even have the newest Matterport, so I can't even imagine what that would be like. But yeah, there's still some standards and some techniques to follow, and you do still need that photography eye, the real estate eye. I don't think you could just hand it off to anybody and expect good results.
Yeah, makes sense. Video is another big one. You know, I think that there's a couple ways to do video. At Real, there's some people doing video at a super high level, like Brad. Brad does some awesome listing videos. It's like a full-blown production. If you can put out something like that, that's badass. That's like the best thing you could do. But you can also take photos and you can create videos from them if you're not wanting to commit that much time or resources into a listing video. And so I think that that is better than doing nothing, and also doesn't mean you're going to spend a lot of money on creating videos. It just basically like rolls the photos through and creates a video out of it. I like 15-second videos for reels and stories, and then I like more like a 90-second for actual like news feed ads, Instagram ads, and also for YouTube. 90 seconds seems to be where a lot of people like, they will stay for most of that, but eventually they will bounce. Like if your video is 4 or 5 minutes long, if you look at watch time, most people do not stay for that duration of time. So I think 90 seconds and 15 seconds, depending on placement, makes a lot of sense. Elliot, what have you seen on that? Is that something you've played with at all?
That's something I'm just really starting to dive into. I came from a higher ed background, so I was talking to students, and students really don't want to pay attention to you. So the timeframes you're saying were about right in that field too.
Yeah, makes sense.
The
So
other
that's
thing we do, Mike, we also do some interior drone stuff. So there's some companies locally that'll fly those little mini drones through the house. That's a pretty cool little thing as well, by the way.
what does that cost?
Somewhere around $300 to $500, depending on. So we only do it on the higher end stuff, but it's a cool experience. I'll get you some info. I don't know if you got anybody out there doing that, but on your high end homes, it's a cool thing.
Yeah, it sounds very interesting. All right, number 4 is the digital marketing. So, like I said at the beginning of this, like marketing has changed so much over the last 20 years. A lot of people used to be like very print marketing heavy. I think that's mostly shifted into digital. The things that we do that I'll share with you, and we've really like worked to enhance this over the last year. And even in the last few weeks, we've kind of taken it to a different level. But we like to create a single property site, meaning that there's a website built just for that listing. Ed, I think you use Sierra Interactive. Sierra Interactive has single property sites built within them, which are decent. I don't think they're great, but they're okay. We started using a tool called Rela, R-E-L-A, and I think Rela has the best single property sites that are out there, and they're pretty easy to create. It's been awesome for us. It becomes the landing page though for all of your digital ads that you're running. And when you talk to your client about this, you want to explain to them like, hey, on all the ads I create, I'm not going to just send people to a list of homes in your area. I'm going to send them to a site that is just unique to your home. So their only options to look at your house, to look at the floor plan, to look at the video, to look at the photos, to look at the features. They're just going to be sitting there looking at your house and your house land. So their only option. I think you need to make sure that you can deliver that experience. We do YouTube as well. We do them both organically and in paid positions. YouTube is huge for exposure, and you can do like a radius around the home. We typically do a 10-mile radius just depending on where the house is at. But a lot of our data has shown us that the buyers are pretty close to where the home is already. Like for instance, we've got a listing in Woodinville right now, and the buyers, like most of the buyer activity actually is coming from Seattle, which is like, as the crow flies 8 miles away from that particular location. So we do that. We do Facebook and Instagram ads as well. Again, we use those photos have been turned into a video, 15-second to 90-second, and we do a 10-mile radius on those ads also. But the Facebook and Instagram, YouTube, it's kind of like passively putting this listing in front of people that may not be actively searching for homes. So it's not going to necessarily give you the buyer, but it's going to expose the house to a lot of potential buyers, and you could get some definite interest off of that. We've sold a couple of listings in-house off of our Facebook ads, or someone called the number that was in the ad. They didn't even like respond to the message on Facebook. They just simply called that number. We always put a phone number in there to the listing agent, and they were able to sell them the house and get them referred to a buyer agent to represent them. So they definitely work and have been really successful for us. Are you doing Sierra one single page or single property sites, Ed?
We only typically do them on the higher end houses. I don't know that I don't see the value as much, but I need to probably learn a few things from you, Mike, on that.
Yeah.
What we find is those links, when we do the links out of Sierra and put them out on Facebook, it's funny because those get shared everywhere. It's that property, and it's like, look at this property. And we'll have other agents share that going, you need to look at this, but that link always comes right back to us. It skips that other agent that's sharing it. So I love the listing links.
Sierra's got some really interesting products for it. Their single property sites are okay. I just don't think that they're exceptional. Typically like the domain that we'll buy for the listing will be like the address and the city, you know, that way it's a unique domain to that listing. As far as in-home marketing goes, some of the stuff that we do placards throughout the house, is kind of like telling people about the different features in the home. I want to make it easy for the buyer agent to not know anything about the house, but still sell the house. And that's where that really comes in. Like a lot of people won't study the listing before they go show it. And so if you just make it like super obvious, where you'd have to be oblivious to not see these features, that helps them sell the property. You know, things like air conditioning in our market are not common, but if you highlight it's got air conditioning, then people see that by the placards. We typically have 15 to 20 per listing, just highlighting the different features of that particular home.
What do those look like, Mike? That I've never seen in my market.
They're like 3 by 3. Anna might have one. And they're like laminated and they stick up on the wall. Yeah, looks like that.
You just
Yep.
stick them to the wall.
Yep.
Mike, we actually use a framed QR code right when you enter the house. So it sets on a little table or it sets on a little something. And when you hit that QR code, it gives you all the supplements, it gives you all the details of the highlights, things like that of the house. And that has been huge for us.
I love that too. That's really
yeah.
cool. You're pretty tech forward, Ed.
It wasn't me.
All right. Feature sheets are another thing we do. Feature sheets. You know, we leave those in the house. They highlight all the features in one page. Sometimes, like in the past, we've done kind of like a flyer from the seller telling people what they will miss about the home as well, because the seller may have some things that are emotional to the home, like that they will share with the potential buyer that really resonates. Like that can create a strong connection for possible
I
buyers.
am stealing that. That was good.
Yeah. You know, like for instance, one person was like, you know, I'm gonna miss the neighborhood block parties we have on the 4th of July because our neighbors are awesome, or something like that. And like that's not something like as agents we might know, you know, but that's something that buyers would love to know potentially, you know. So I think that's one way to make your listing stand out also. And then property lines, like I get asked so many times, especially on acreage listings, like where are the property lines? Best thing to do that I've seen is take a drone photo and get it like drawn on there from, you know, Box Brownie or something, or have your graphics person do it so that they have an idea of where the property boundary is at, and they have the better understanding of it. What else do you do in the house that I maybe missed? You're muted, buddy. I'm reading that.
Sorry
There
about
you
that. Do you guys have GIS up there where it shows the property with the lines and everything?
GIS, I've never heard of that. What is that?
Oh, wow. So GIS mapping is Integrity is who does it back here for most of our counties in Kansas, Missouri, Iowa. And you just pull the property address up, it shows you the boundaries and everything. So yeah, I just thought everybody had that.
How do you incorporate that into the listing?
Well, we actually take each one of those and we map it. And so that becomes part of our listing. When we go, we say, this looks like the boundaries. And did you know you had an encumbrance over here because that building's sitting on there, right? So we like seeing that up front before we get too deep into the listing.
Gotcha. Okay.
Hey, Mike, Snohomish County has the GIS system, just so you know.
Okay, is that something you've used, Dan?
Yeah, I use it regularly. And actually, Realist, if you go into the parcel number in Realist and you go back into the map, there's a footage button that will show you in red lines over the satellite image what the actual dimensions are.
Will you find me next time you're in office and show me all
Yeah,
this?
I'll send you an email. Yep.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate
Maybe
it.
teach the whole team.
Yeah.
I was also going to share really quick. I use the Onyx hunting map. It does show a lot of like the property lines and even like we'll say some property names of like the owners. It's like a hunting map.
Sure.
We always put those in our listings and our paperwork too, because that becomes part of our contract a lot of times to say, hey, this is what we know. And I think it's protected us 2 or 3 times throughout the years as well.
Yeah, smart. Dan has a unique perspective because he's an agent on our team, but he's also an appraiser. So he brings a different perspective to the table. That's helpful. The next one, you can do enhanced Zillow and Realtor.com placements. Like if you look at most of the buyer activity on websites, it's happening in Realtor.com, it's happening in Zillow, and it's happening on Redfin, like that's like 70-80% of the online traffic you're going to see. We don't do that, but it is an option. You can like pay to play to have your listing put at the top or show up in more results. We just haven't done it because it's super expensive, and I'm not sure that it makes a huge impact. Is that something you've played with, Ed?
We don't do it. We played with it early on with Zillow, but I don't see the benefits. You
Yeah.
start spending so much money on this stuff, all of a sudden there's no return on investment, right?
Right. Yeah, our focus on the investment in the listing is usually in the preparation of the listing, the staging of the listing, and then the digital marketing of the listing, because those are the things we know actually get traction and get results, you know. Some of the other things I do, I don't like, I don't know if you guys ever get emails from agents in your market with their listings. I freaking hate that shit. I do not send it to people. We all know how to use the MLS. Like if I've got a buyer looking for a listing, I'm going to do my research and find the listing. Like you don't need to send it to me. And I get like 3 or 4 of these a day from people. It just drives me nuts. So I don't do that. I don't spend tons of money on print marketing. I think it makes your seller feel really special, but if you're being totally honest with them, it absolutely does not sell their house. And I've seen some like luxury agents spend like thousands of dollars per listing on this, and it by no way, shape, or form sells the property. Like it just doesn't. I mean, having those at the home when somebody's already in the home doesn't actually sell the house. The house is what sells the house, and you've already got them in the home. So just think about that. Have you spent a lot of money? I mean, you've been doing this a long time. Like, did you used to spend more money on print marketing? You've pulled back because it's become more digital.
Well, we've been doing it long enough where they'd always have a monthly magazine with all your properties and all that kind of crap, right? And I hated it then and I hate it today. And, you know, it just get it out there and make it look. The key is to make it look the best you can make it look. If you make it look the best you can look, you're going to get lots of people through. And the goal is always lots of numbers through will get that house sold at some point, right?
Yep. And in your market, do you guys track the data stat on how many showings per pending you get? Like on average, is that a stat you can track?
We do not. We do not. I could tell you in house, but I can't tell you for the market.
Okay. Yeah, that's something that got added to our MLS like 3-4 years ago. And it's something I look at quite a bit. And it can range widely, but depending on the location, like the city it's in, even price range as well. But it helps frame expectations for your seller. Like, hey, we've only had 7 showings, and we know that in your price range, your location, we need 21 showings to actually get a pending. So we got to get way more showings going on. You know what I'm saying? It helps them understand that. One thing I want to touch on that's not really marketing, but it's more just listing focused is like, what are you sending to your active listings weekly as the market shifts and we've got listings sitting for longer periods of time? You need a strategy to bring value to your active listings and not just be like avoiding them and not just calling them and not bring any value to those phone calls. Calling you, Ed, as my seller and just saying, hey, Ed, checking on you, like that's not going to bring value to that person. So what are you doing very intentionally, very proactively on a weekly basis or every 2 weeks to really bring value on what you've been doing to market their home, the exposure they've had, feedback you've gotten, things like that? Do you want to talk about that, Ed?
Yeah, I would say 99% of the time, if you price it correctly to begin with, you're not going to have these issues, right? So knowing your market up front is definitely key. Pricing it right. Now, is everybody going to listen to you? Probably not. You're going to have the buyer, the seller that says it's worth this. That's great. Try to negotiate up front so you don't have to try to negotiate later. If you negotiate up front and say it's 500,000, no, it's not, it's 450. We talked about this earlier. Let's get some of those drops built in right now because I'm spending money on that property unlike a lot of agents in your market, right? I'm spending money on it. Most agents aren't going to do crap. They're going to put a sign in, they're going to put it on the MLS, and they're going to pray that it sells, right? I'm going to spend money, and if I'm going to spend money, we have to have a plan to get from 500 back down to somewhere that it's going to sell. And I say 450, you say 500. So I think that number one's a big deal. If I don't get that, then I'm having conversations, and that phone call becomes, okay, we talked about this. We're now a week in, and I just want to give you some updates. The updates are you had 1 showing. You already know that. The updates are here's your new competition on the market, right? The updates are here's the house that was pending. Now it's back on the market. So I think we're just trying to give them a real-time look of the market to say, hey, this is why your house is probably not selling still. So are you ready to make the move to get it to where it needs to be?
I love that. Anna, why don't you talk about the active seller process we've been doing?
Yeah, so every week, usually on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, we send out a spreadsheet. And on that spreadsheet will be the last week's showing feedback. So it'll have every single showing. And then even if they didn't provide feedback, we'll let them know that we reached out and they didn't respond. And then we'll also have the current days on market. We'll have the average days on market for the area and that price range, and then we'll have the amount of showings that we've had since the property went live. We'll also include a link to all the active competition, and then we'll include a CMA one line so they can compare every single listing.
Yeah. Yeah, what Ed said, like being able to see the active competition is really huge. And as our market has shifted, like this wasn't something we had to do 6 months ago. And this hasn't been something we've had to do over the last couple of years, but it's becoming more important now as things are sitting longer and as we're watching days on market for active listings go up quite a bit and really fast, you know. So we want to be proactively providing this data. If you can show them what your digital marketing is doing as well, how many videos views do they have, things like that, how many clicks on the ads. I think that's really huge. Also, you can go into the back end of Zillow and realtor.com and you can screenshot the activity there also, and you'll see typically, like when you do a price drop in Zillow, you'll see like a big spike in traffic, and I think it's important to capture that and show the sellers like, hey, that price drop really did actually give us a lot of activity. We will typically, like if you look at the stats on open houses don't usually sell that particular home. Open houses are a great lead source to generate buyers. And I'm very direct and candid with that about sellers, because a lot of sellers still think open houses are going to sell the house. And we all know that not to be true, right? It's just, it's typically not the case. It is the case 3 or 4% of the time, and that's about it. So that's not our main marketing strategy, but we will do open houses the first week we come on the market, and we'll do them the week following any price reduction. But that's all we do for it, basically. Ed, do you do open houses at all?
We try to, especially with our newer agents that need to get up and going, but open houses don't get me too excited unless we're looking for buyers, because they're not going to sell the house, right? Typically. I think the other thing to look at though is your showing services and showing, you know, how many showings were there for the price range you're in your city, in your area, whatever it is. Use those stats to your benefit. So you can say, you know what, showings are way down this week. Maybe it's 4th of July week. Showings were way down this week. So what I'm thinking is, let's give it another week, because it was a weird week. It was, you know, a holiday week, but use those stats to your benefit to have good conversations with your clients.
Dan or Anna or Dusty, do you guys know if that's available in our MLS to see like the overall showing volume for a given period of time? I don't know either.
I know Showing Time. Do you guys use Showing Time up there?
Yeah.
I know Showing Time had it. We actually use Broker Bay now, which everybody calls it Broken Bay, but but we do have those stats available to see how many showings in St. Joseph happened through that system last week or yesterday. And I just think there's some good data there. We've not perfected it by any means, but when we need it, it's there to go have a hard conversation.
Yeah, Christine Smith, our good friend at Real, she put on that we recently upgraded to Showing Time Plus to will show showings for comparable properties. Anna, we should check that out. I would love to.
InfoSparks has shows to pending and shows per listing.
Does it? It doesn't aggregate the total activity in a market.
You can get that with a couple steps.
Okay. See that. That'd be interesting. That'd be really helpful to show the ebbs and the flows of activity happening in the market. Because like you said, Ed, like there's weeks like 4th of July where nothing is happening. Or for us, like really from the end of June until the beginning of August, it's like the deadest time of the year here, where everyone's on summer breaks and traveling and distracted and enjoying the nice weather, which we hardly ever get. And then they pick back up the home shopping like 3rd week in August, 2nd week in August. So Christine, thanks for sharing that. That's awesome. Awesome to see you on here. If you've got anything else you want to chime in on, I mean, I know that you're a badass when it comes to all this stuff as well. Love to get any other thoughts that you have.
Single property websites, I feel like we have to be a lot more mindful of sustained marketing and the cost of that right now, opposed to paying for a single property website for like just 60 days. We used to use, and it depends on the type of listing that I'm taking, but I was using crib flyers, which is very comparable to your RELA, but it's only like $15 a month. And I'll do that for like my more premium listings. But my less premium listings, we're just doing a Canva website and we've like built out a template. That way I'm only paying a one-time fee for a 1-year domain. And that
Yeah.
seems to be working really well. And I think the new direction, like if we do have sellers that are offering buyer agent compensation, the single property website is to me kind of the ideal place for that information to sit.
Yeah, to still show it. Yeah, awesome. I love it. Cool. Anything else, guys? We got like 2 minutes if you've got any burning questions that we did not cover today, if there's something you want to share for the betterment of the group. Dave, I know you always got something that you're sitting on. What do you got, buddy?
Thank you. I haven't used the buyers, the single, the buyer's website through or the listing through Sierra yet, which I think is something important. You know, I have my largest listing coming up next month. It's going to be right around $1 million. And so I like the idea of these 3x3 placards going through the house. I like the idea too of doing an appraisal to really bring clarity, because if somebody's going to come in way over and they're not going to provide an appraisal gap, and you have that data of an appraisal beforehand, I think that's super important, not just to bring creativity or to bring clarity and bringing a realistic number to your seller, but what if we get these offers in and we're not getting these appraisal gaps? So I'm just kind of running around because this is my biggest year of listings, and I'm learning more and more as I go with each one. And you're showing me that I can always do more on these, and we can. I didn't like pictures that came in yesterday of the area of this Del Webb 55 over community. I told them, no, we have to go back today. I will be there on site with you, and I will go through some of these pictures of the neighborhood, because they gave us these drone shots, and 55 and over aren't going to know what these drone shots even are, even if I put on there. So I think it's always just going that little bit extra and always being better. And I'm going to take 2 hours to do that today because they just didn't do a good enough job. And I think that's a big thing. And you guys know that at Real, you're always going the extra mile, even if it's something out of your way. It's not out of your way because we're grateful just to get the listings.
Yeah. If you need help or you want to bounce any ideas off your $1 million listing, definitely reach out to Ed or I or Rachel or Jim, and we can help you out. Okay.
I appreciate that. Thank you guys so much. You're awesome. Thank you.
Hey, Dave, the other thing on the appraisal side, I'll just share with you is you get the appraisal up front, you go to market, you get it sold, you get it under contract. When the next appraiser comes in, and I've done this probably 10 times since I started doing this a few years ago, next appraiser comes in and comes under. It's always fun to say, gosh, 30 days ago, I just had it appraised. That's kind of odd, and hand them that appraisal. It's a fun moment as a realtor.
Definitely. And I want to remind you, like most agents, their marketing strategy is to put the home in the MLS, put a sign in the yard, and put a lockbox on the house. And we are better than that, guys. Like if you're out there in that listing appointment and you're saying, hey, I'm going to do X, Y, Z for you, I've got world-class marketing, you damn well better be able to deliver that experience. And that's what this is all about. Like if you can deliver this stuff, if you can follow through on it and execute it, you'll have a very, very compelling listing presentation that will sell itself, guys. And that's what it's all about. Okay. Awesome to hang with you guys today. I'll see you guys next week. Have a great day.